Hello, myself Sunil Ramakrishna. Here basically are discussing the topic that is city creation, and city creation basically in this we are discussing the topic that is text box and user controls. Up to what level this group basically are connected. So one person basically asked the question, Sunil, basically how you are so 100% confidence that text box is not checked by the Earth Planet group basically. That is the USA group basically. But in really basically USA just is just in front basically. They basically just are in front. So here basically we are not going into who is front, who is not front. So we will talk to the point. One of the person told them how you are so 100% confidence. So Sunil and I are basically given few examples. Assume that basically what space center basically the Bangalore group basically, that is the ISRO group basically, they launched one satellite basically, or satellites basically, one satellite. So one of the person told that they launched this basically. So when they are launching, there are many conditions basically which gets applied. So he told that how basically you can say, because in space center basically, in satellite basically, many communication basically happens, right? That happens through the way basically. In that basically the roadmaps are created, right? Basically, how basically they get the data basically. They basically displays the data in the text box. So that required the, if it's in within the Earth planet, then it's okay. The California land basically is giving the power supply, and that text box is equal to 1000 city, and that 1000 city basically is giving the power supply. That basically we can understand. But here basically how that is basically that, because here the thing is the data basically are, the power supply basically are sent from the roadmaps basically. The roadmaps basically are created basically. How basically the plane communicates the Earth planet? Because the advanced roadmap basically are created. Advanced roadmaps are basically created by the set of groups basically. I have taken one example, 100 rich people basically are there who are still controlling the whole world. So entire GDP basically what India is going to get, that is decided by that group basically. So it's a India. So that would be the Indian group basically who actually really created the India. They only are connected basically, but they basically never comes in front of the world. Few people basically might be telling that basically they are king family, but they are not king family. They are in front basically. Whatever the things are in front and basically that all are wrong basically. So here basically one of the person told that the one satellite basically they launched on Monday, that reached to space center basically, or basically the satellite reached to some area basically where it was supposed to reach. It reached just within 3 to 4 hours. But the Earth planet get the information in news channel basically that it has launched after 1 week. That is one thing. So within this 1 week actually what happens? That is one thing basically. Then basically one of the person told that if condition, while conditions, for loop, these all are basically, for example, plane basically is getting direction basically how basically that he have to move its side. The plane is supposed to move left. The plane is supposed to move right. The plane is supposed to move top side. How basically it's decided with? That is the business logic basically. It's written in the programming basic. That is the chip basically, which is written basically. So one of the person told that here basically how the power supply basically is getting passed. That is also question basically, because in Earth planet basically when we see in Earth planet basically the Earth planet get the power supply from the 1000 city equal to if loop, 1000 city equal to for loop basically. So for loop is created from that 1000 cities. California basically land is which is giving the power supply to the computer. But in plane basically how they are doing basically? That is question basically. That is the advanced roadmap basically are created. So they have to be exactly basically they have to be totally basically they have to be updated. How? Assume that basically if condition basically uh, updated around 10 city more. So when you execute the if condition business logic, basically in that if condition, some 10 to 20 few new cities basically are created, but that is not updated in the sky basically. That is not updated where the planes basically are moving. So that time basically it will create problem. That's why basically the space satellites every time daily basically they are launching some satellites. The Korean group basically. The Korean group basically they basically can understand what actually I'm telling. So they basically launches daily basically at least basically they might be launching 10 to 15 satellites basically. Why this is not getting displayed? Why? Because if condition anybody knows basically. Few people will think basically what they are sending here basically daily basically they are 10 sending 10 to 20 basically. From that basically it might possible that somebody tracks that basically. Yeah, ऐसा तो नहीं है if condition like wall condition, because whenever basically the business logics are triggered basically that time basically the power supply is required basically. So when plane basically gets that new 10 city conditions, assume that basically some new if condition basically was added, new parameter basically was added, that parameter basically is connecting to that new 10 cities. So that 10 city basically power supply has to be updated. That basically need to nuclear power company, everybody need to be updated because it doesn't happen automatically basically. You have to do some manual process basically. So one person told that the world basically has automatically updated basically. AI basically is already implemented, but AI implementation basically happens that correct. But you have to do some manual processes. This 10 city basically 20 city basically updated, that how basically it gets connects to the power supply. So same way basically the power supply, the satellite group basically, the space center group basically, they also basically have to be updated with this 10 to 12 cities basically. So this is one thing basically. But the testing part basically which was supposed to be done, 500 city basically power supply was not passed into this if condition. Due to this basically few if condition basically was hijacked. And in this previous example basically I have taken the one example, the Reliance group basically whenever they are launching some big transactions basically, they first basically hires hackers basically, that are the Russian group basically. After that basically they do the rest of payments basically. You will not able to believe it basically. So they know why, because they know everything basically. They can't fight with the hackers basically, because hackers are basically doing their task basically, and they are basically the number one group basically who actually created this everything basically. So they say that basically we also require some money na basically, we are basically doing this everything basically, so we also did. So that might be the Reliance group might be understanding this, so they might be paying some money to that hackers group basically. So that basically we don't know basically why they are paying, but they might be paying basically. 100% they might be paying basically. And that also basically they might be paying first basically to the hackers group. So that is basically one thing basically. So here basically the for loop if loop basically gets hijacked. Due to that basically the plane direction basically suddenly gets changed. Sometimes basically lots of people say, "Arey yaar, the plane was supposed to move that side. It basically moved this side." Sometimes basically you might be saw that basically the train is moving, supposed to move. Train was supposed to move to that side, but it has moved to another side. That is the if condition, for loop condition, and all the business logic basically which is written in the train running chip basically. Due to that chip basically which supposed to give the direction basically, that direction basically is not getting. Why? Because the if condition is hijacked by some certain level of groups basically. So train also basically gets hijacked. So this is basically new thing basically in the video basically which I displayed. Train also basically get hijacked. This everything basically the Indian government basically can understand this. No basically. Why? Because they basically don't know that if condition also basically is coming from the power supply. Text box equal to 1000 cities also there. Then how basically they can understand this basically. But from this video basically they can understand. But they have to find out basically where is that 1000 cities. And this is very dangerous and very most important task basically for the Indian government basically, and for the USA government also, because USA government also don't know that 1000 cities like there basically. So in next video basically we are going to see a little bit more about this topic.